If I were going to be trying to save the patina and look of the fretboard, I would come in with a tiny little good quality file and just clean it up. And you have to have a flat surface for the new frets to go in, flat and clean, which we're going to get to next. Now the process of doing this will actually show you if you've got any major chip out. I also do have my little nibs here that I'm going to be removing. I personally will use a little chisel for that, or would at least if I was doing this and not having to go over with a leveling beam in a minute. Now a chisel is another thing. You can hold it flat to the board and scratch it a little bit, but not cut. So you could use your chisel to normalize the top of the board where the new fret is going to go. I don't know, I prefer a file because the file will push down as it cuts and cleans. The next thing to do is, with a triangular file or a tiny little rat tail round file, for example, let's find a little. I have far too many files and tools and things. Here we go. So a little round file. Whenever you do a fret job, I'm being very naughty and working towards myself because this file is too short. Whenever you do a fret job, you have to open the top of the cavity to allow the new fret to go in, and just find it a little bit easier. I normally actually do that with a triangular file, and somebody's stolen the usual one. Again, the last thing you want to do is go off sideways and scratch your fretboard. Now this is just opening the hole, just the top of the slot a little bit, to allow you to go a little bit easier later. I would also, once you're here, see what she's doing and clean out any rubbish. Now these fret slots are fairly standard. I would say 0.22, what, 22 thousandths of an inch. I'm never going to be good at imperial. And yeah, our fret slot cleaning saw, it works both ways. You push with one side, you pull with the other, and it's not really a saw. It's here to clean out any gunk and rubbish in the bottom. I've used vacuums in the past to do that as well. But I'm jumping the gun. That is if you don't have to reshape the fretboard. Today, we do to a certain extent. It's not quite level, it's not quite straight. I don't think, I need to double check that, but it's also the wrong radius for what we want to end up with. So I need to get a leveling beam out. Now, leveling beams, these, again, we make them here. Unlike other companies' offerings, they use a standard steel extrusion, which is a massive, half-inch round over on each edge, which means that the sandpaper you actually get to use is only about half of the width. We use square extruded aluminium, which allows us to get a much wider edge. And using the greatest lithiest trick ever, we put sandpaper on, and essentially it can be used to level anything. Before I do that though, I need to check how straight and true the board is and adjust the truss rod. Removing the frets will have removed some of the tension, but it already had quite a large relief in there, and we don't want that. So let's have a look. This is my my master straight edge. This is quite impressive, actually. Wow. Okay. I'm putting the straight edge down on top of the dirt and the gunk that came from the from underneath the frets from years of hard gigging. But actually, this fretboard is pretty much bang on straight. So all I need to do now is level it with the leveling beam. I want to check and see and make absolutely sure that without the frets on, I'm not going to hit the pickup, and I'm not going to hit the pickup. I'm also, however, going to take precautions by taping that up. So when you're doing fret work, the last thing you want to do is damage anything else in the instrument. Actually, speaking of that, some masking tape will react with some guitar finishes, and especially when I'm working with a vintage instrument, I will minimize or completely avoid masking tape on finish if I possibly can help it. So yeah, just keep it on the scratch plate. Keep it clean, boys. Now the other thing is, if you've watched my other videos on the fretwork, I haven't really taped off the pickups. I had early in my career done some tests with magnets to see whether pickup magnets held fret material and whether they could do any damage. And I couldn't find any fret wire that was attracted to magnets. So I never bothered taping up the pickups. However, it is good practice to do. I have been told from other people on followers of the channel that they have seen some metal from frets while you're doing the leveling job be attracted to the pickups. So cover that up, and especially do that if you are ever going to use the abomination that is wire wool, because that nastiness does get everywhere. I'm not really worried about going through the inlays here. The other camera just beeped at me. So, however, I am going to go carefully, and the most important thing is to keep the whole instrument steady and stable, and to not push too hard, not do any... This is delicate work. Be soft, be gentle, and go slowly and carefully. I'm starting with a medium. This is a fairly well used 180 grit paper on here. 16-inch leveling beam. So you only have to move a couple of inches to cover the whole fretboard. I'm going to support the neck underneath, and I'm not pushing very hard. First thing to do is take the nibs off. And you'll hear the difference. I have a bad habit, and you actually just witnessed that. I tend to use my leveling beams one-handed. like this, because it feels better to me to have support underneath the neck. Now the reason I do that really is to, if I am pushing too hard, if I'm causing any deflection of the neck, I will feel it with my left hand. The problem is, any person as they're working, their body moves the way your arm and shoulder moves, and it tends to cause a twist. If you stand square on to your leveling beam, only move one way, and hold it like this from both ends, you get a much more precise job out of it. And precision, after all, is exactly what we are after. You can even see I'm moving my whole body with the beam rather than just my hands, so that I'm keeping it as stable and straight and flat as I possibly can. Now up to this point, I'm really not taking very much material off. I'm just cleaning the top of the fret slots where the frets were and the gunk is. I haven't even really touched the vestigial nibs. Bang Crow Crimson Guitars 2016, vestigial nibs. I love it. So I'm actually going to go onto a slightly coarser grit paper. Before I do though, we're aiming for 7.25 at this end of the board, and we are not far off already. It's been played so much with a fret wire that has a compound radius that the board has worn away to match. So coarser grit paper, whoops, it's tempting to clamp her down actually, but that adds tension, and we don't want tension. Tension-free life, that should be a goal for everybody. I love this. You can see where he plays the most, and yeah, I don't know. Guitars are awesome. Forensic luthiery. So we have nearly 7.25 at that end, and exactly 12 at this end. The trick is to level at the angle of the strings, creating a cone. If you level parallel to the center line, you will keep whatever radius you happen to be on. So in this case, if I spend you see, I've done it again. Support the neck, one-handed leveling beam. Damn it. Bad habits are so difficult to get out of. It's not so critical at this stage, but when you're leveling frets, by gum. I'm taking this as slowly as I can. I can still see the vestigial nibs. I don't know why that amuses me so much. And I can see the round over where the edges of the binding had been round over. However, those vestigial nibs, as they currently stand, actually carry on the radius that I'm expecting. So 7.25 there, going to 9.5, moving to 10, thereabouts, and finally all the way evenly up to 12. Now, this is a not vintage instrument, this is a well-played older instrument, and I don't want to have a pristine fretboard. It's not necessary, it's not right, actually, to a certain extent. So while I could keep on going and leave a perfect fretboard and possibly also go through the inlays, what I am going to do instead, let me finish my sentence. I could have carried on, achieved perfection, and then with a leveling beam gone through the grits to get myself a perfectly sanded fretboard. We don't really want that. What I am going to use instead is, very carefully, a sanding block and some finer sandpaper, which is going to, I'm not going to take very much off. I'm not going to change how straight or flat the board is, but I'm also going to try and keep the look. Now, before I do anything else, I do need to double check that I haven't done any damage yet. That I haven't done any damage. Haven't changed how straight it is, haven't caused any twist or anything like that. And I haven't, it's pretty much as it was when I started this sanding process. So here's one option. This is foam backed paper. I can use that. I could use a sanding block and go along. And as long as you sand evenly across the whole board, you can do that. Before that though, I am going to carry on a little bit with the finer grit paper on the other side of my leveling beam. I love leveling beams. It used to be a tool that I could take it or leave it, but these days it's absolutely essential to how I build guitars and how I repair guitars. There we go. And I'm just hitting it now. I'm not going crazy. Yeah. There we go. There's no way I've changed any of this. But always double, treble, quadruple check everything you do. Cool. Now, on to cleaning up the fret slots really. I don't have a hoover up here. Compressed air would also be very useful. I tend to just do that. And then come in either with a fret slot cleaning saw, because there is glue in here, or a scalpel blade or something like that. But yeah, just to make life simpler, I'm going to hit it first with a triangular file. The other reason for doing a triangular file first like this is if you do have any weak spots where you've got some tear out and it is just waiting for an excuse to rip out a chunk of your fretboard, cleaning the slots is when it will happen. Now, taking the top off means that it's less likely to get ripped out. So here's the fretboard as we are. There are a couple of places where you can see a little bit of tear out, but nothing major. That's slightly annoying, that corner. Now if I was going for a pristine fretboard, I would probably fill that with dust and glue. I'm still tempted to be honest. It looks worse on film actually. I have also cleaned out every single fret slot and gone right to the end. This is the fret slot cleaning saw, and it's got a little hook at the end that hooks out all the excess glue and stuff. So I'm now ready to bend some fret wire really.